than replacing tournaments as the main revenue stream. A lot of clubs got themselves into the situation where they relied so much on tournaments as their #1 revenue stream that when a tournament started to go south, they were in big trouble as an organization. So looking at tournaments is one revenue stream, but it shouldn't be the main one. It shouldn't be the only one that a club needs to have a number of different revenue streams, because tournaments really fluctuate. Sometimes it's the economy, sometimes it's because so many other tournaments. I mean, look on Soccer America's website to the number of tournaments that go on across the United States every weekend, and it's literally thousands every single weekend, no exception, every single weekend. Somewhere in the United States, there's a whole bunch of tournaments going on, indoor, outdoor, old people, young people, 3-a-side, 11-a-side, you name it, right? There's a lot of competition out there in regards to tournaments. So that's another piece that clubs have to take a look at. Parent education is probably the biggest piece for clubs to tackle, and it's the one that few clubs have recognized that this is now their #1 function. I'm telling clubs all across the country, your #1 function used to be player development. That's now #2. Your #1 function as a youth soccer club is educating moms and dads about their child's soccer experience, about what it could be, should be, how it's going to go, that it's a 20-year track, not a 2-year track, right? Because I talk to coaches, most of whom know this, but when I ask a lot of people who are new to the sport, be they parents of a child, or a new referee, a new coach, but they're new to the sport of soccer, and I ask them, at what age does a soccer player peak? What do you think they tell me?
11.
A lot of them are saying 11, 13, somewhere in there. And then I say, no, it's 27 if you're a field player, 33 if you're a goalkeeper. And they're in shock. But look at the Philadelphia Union. How many 13-year-olds are on the field compared to 27-year-olds? Right? And there's some goalkeepers, even at the professional level, that are 40 years old and playing. So Van de Sar is a very notable one. Who's the #2 goalkeeper on their team says, yeah, training with Van de Sar is like practicing with my dad, because the guy's 20. The #2 guy, right? So parent education in a number of different areas to help them understand the youth soccer experience and what it is that their kids getting into it, and then what are the different tracks that their child could possibly go through. This is all part of the value of membership within the club. This is, we've got a couple of clubs that are beginning to be like this. One that I can think of right off the top of my head are the Richmond Strikers in Virginia, that have under-6 through A-League, or whatever we call our 2nd division now. So they have under-6 up to a professional team as a part of the club. So you could theoretically come into that club as an under-6 and someday play on the pro team. 2nd division pro, not MLS. Right? Obviously, I just mentioned one, and I know that John Hackworth is working on this with the Philadelphia Union. I just mentioned FC Dallas has under-8 through first team pro. Okay? So again, you could come in theoretically as under-8 and someday be playing on the MLS team. So that's beginning to be there, and that's what we're talking about, the value to see the first team. Okay? Using the services that you have available to you as a club. You have a lot of services available to you from Eastern Pennsylvania Youth Soccer, extended from them into US Youth Soccer, extend from them into US Soccer. So there's a lot of resources there, and not enough of the clubs take advantage of those resources, and are sometimes surprised to find out how much is available to them. But it's a little bit of, hey, go knock on the door. What's the worst that could happen? They could say, no, we don't have that for you. You're probably no worse off than you were before you went and knocked on the door. So go and ask your state association and national offices at USU Soccer and US Soccer as to what it is that they can do for you. This piece, the first bullet point, is just part of kind of where we're changing a little bit. Our predominant model is to pay to play, that our kids pay to play. But at the elite level, the select level, it's well, when does that change over to they're getting paid to play for us? And so that's happening with a few clubs, but it's only because things like major corporations like Adidas underwrite it. You know, so you look at some of the MLS youth teams, the unions under 19s, under 18s, there are under 18s and under 16s that play in the developmental academy. Those kids don't pay anything to play on those teams. The club pays for it, but that's because they're getting the money from Adidas. That's where they generate the revenue. So that it's beginning to happen a little bit. The pressure for wins at the youth level. This goes back to the parent education piece and us understanding how it is that we measure success. And that, yeah, you can measure success by the won-loss record. You can measure success by the goals for, goals against statistics and the such. But those of us who've played the game long enough, those of us who've coached the game long enough, know this about soccer. It is the cruelest of all team sports. It's the only team sport where you can have possession of the ball for 80% of the match, outshoot the opposition 20 shots to 1, lose 1-0 on that one counterattack goal. I've been that team. I've been the team that's hit the inside of the post and it bounces out 5 times in a match. And you go, the soccer gods say no. And I've been that team that's barely gotten past the halfway line, get down there one time, get whacked in the penalty area, get a penalty kick, win 1-0, and then I tell the guys, get on the bus, let's get the hell out of town before they add on injury time. Okay? So you know from playing the game and from coaching the game that our sport is not one that the statistics clearly show how the game was played. And so the won-loss record doesn't always tell you how your team played. The goals for, goals against isn't always a reflection of how the kids are improving, how well the coach might be developing the players. So I put it out to people that, yes, we're always striving to win. You should always be playing to try to win, but that's an overly simplistic measuring stick. That there's more shades of gray in terms of the development of players, that it takes qualified coaches, trained eyes to look at and to be able to see and to be able to evaluate and to know, oh, well, we missed the goal, but Susie just took a shot with her left foot for the first time in her soccer career. And yeah, it went wide, but that was the first time she's ever attempted a shot on goal with her left foot in a match. I've got to be praising that as her coach, because I got to look for the subtle things that are occurring, not the obvious miss that anybody can see. It doesn't take any coaching talent to see that. So the won-loss record as a measuring stick, it's in there, it's just well down the list. Right? It's on the list, but it's well down the list. We have a tendency still to compare ourselves to other sports in terms of the way that they do things. Well, here's a big piece, coaches, that we're getting across in the youth license course. Soccer is a player-centered sport. Football, basketball, baseball, ice hockey are coach-centered sports. By their design, they are coach-centered sports. The coach during those games has an integral part to play during the game. The ice hockey coach obviously does a lot in terms of the rotation and the substitution of players. The basketball coach, which is the closest to soccer in terms of being a transition sport where you quickly change possession of the ball, and so the same people on the field or on the court switch instantly from offense to defense. That still has timeouts, and the point guard will slow it down and wait for the coach to give him the sign, and then he says, we're doing play number 1 or whatever. Well, that's not how soccer is played. Soccer is played by the players making the decisions, not the coaches. During a match, a coach is of secondary importance in the game of soccer. The players are of primary importance during the match. That switches around a little bit during the training sessions because the coach is driving the learning of the players. But on game day, our sport is designed for the players. Look at the laws of the game, and you can see how it's designed to be a player-centered sport, not a coach-centered sport. There's no signals from the third base coach. There's no huddle. There's no timeout. Play. Okay, until halftime or quarters if you're at U6 and U8. Come over, get a quick drink. If they're a little bit older, give them a little bit of advice for what to do in the next period of play. Go back out and play, sort of a thing, and then work at it at the next training session. So this is part of that education of administrators, parents, coaches, and referees of, yeah, we can look at other sports for sure, but don't make a direct comparison because they're designed differently. Then the impact of school soccer as you get into your older kids, middle school, high school kids, and how